ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, is widely regarded as one of the most cost-effective and efficient space agencies in the world. For decades, it has built a reputation for reliability, precision, and consistency. But the last few months have been difficult. ISRO's first launch of 2026, the PSLV C-62 mission, failed. The rocket was supposed to place 16 satellites into orbit, including satellites from countries like Brazil and the UK. All of them were lost. What makes this failure more serious is that it was not an isolated incident. Just 8 months earlier, in May 2025, another PSLV mission, C-61, had failed as well. 2 consecutive failures, same launch vehicle, same stage of the rocket. That's why this episode matters for far beyond a single launch. Why PSLV matters so much? PSLV, or the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, is often called ISRO's workhorse. Over the last 33 years, PSLV has flown around 64 missions with a historical success rate of over 95%. It has placed hundreds of satellites into orbit for India and for foreign customers. It's central to Earth observation, defense and surveillance, communication satellites, and commercial launch services. So when PSLV fails twice in a row, it raises a very basic question. What exactly is going wrong? The PSLV C-62 mission began normally. For the first 8 minutes, flight parameters such as speed, trajectory, and system performance were within expected limits. Then, telemetry data showed a deviation in the flight path. The problem emerged in the third stage of the rocket, known as PS3. Once the vehicle drifted away from its planned trajectory, it could no longer achieve the required orbital velocity, and the mission had to be terminated. This failure immediately brought back memories of PSLV C-61, which had failed in a very similar manner. Pattern from C-61 to C-62? Well, in the PSLV C-61 mission in May 2025, the failure happened earlier, about 3.5 minutes after launch. The official explanation pointed to a sudden drop in combustion chamber pressure in the third stage. That pressure drop reduced thrust, prevented the rocket from reaching orbital speed, and caused the vehicle to fall back to Earth's gravity. A failure analysis committee investigated the incident and submitted its report to the Department of Space and the PMO. However, the full report was never made public, reportedly because the mission carried defense-related payloads. Fast forward to PSLV C-62. Again, the failure occurred in the third stage. Early reports suggest a gas leakage or uneven thrust, which may have caused abnormal spinning of the rocket. Since the third stage has no active spin control system, recovery was not possible. Different symptoms, but the same vulnerable stage. Why the third stage is critical? PSLV has 4 stages, and each stage serves a different purpose. The first stage uses solid fuel to lift the rocket off the ground and overcome gravity. Second stage, powered by the liquid fuel Vikas engine, builds horizontal velocity. Third stage provides rapid acceleration, pushing the rocket close to orbital speed. The fourth stage uses liquid propulsion for precise orbital placement of satellites. Third stage is the most delicate phase. At this point, the rocket must reach speeds of 26,000 to 28,000 km per hour. That speed is essential to stay in orbit. If combustion chamber pressure drops due to leakage, material fatigue, nozzle erosion, or manufacturing defects, thrust reduces instantly. Without sufficient thrust, orbital velocity is not achieved and the mission fails. This is what likely happened in both C-61 and C-62. The third stage of PSLV is not experimental technology. It has flown successfully for decades. When a mature system fails repeatedly, the problem usually lies in manufacturing quality, material integrity, vendor oversight, insufficient testing, or certification. This raises uncomfortable questions. Were the fixes after C-61 sufficient? Were quality checks strong enough before returning to flight? Was the pressure to launch too high? Strategic and economic impact. These failures are not just technical setbacks, they affect national security because defense and surveillance satellites were lost. They affect India's space economy because PSLV is a major revenue generator for commercial launches. They affect global confidence because foreign customers trust PSLV for low-cost, reliable access to space. Insurance premiums rise, commercial clients hesitate. NSIL, ISRO's commercial arm, faces credibility pressure. For a country trying to position itself as a space economy power, this does matter. Transparency dilemma is one of the biggest challenges here. ISRO operates at the intersection of civilian space missions and defense payloads. That creates a tension between the national security, secrecy and public accountability. But without at least redacted technical findings, trust becomes difficult to rebuild, especially for commercial partners and the private players entering India's space sector. This is not a collapse of India's space program. It is a stress test, though. A moment that forces ISRO to slow down, strengthen quality assurance, tighten vendor oversight and reinforce testing standards, even if that means fewer launches in the short term. Space missions operate with extremely thin margins of error. Failures can happen, but repeated failures of the same system demand decisive correction. ISRO has recovered from setbacks before and come back stronger. This time, the comeback must be more careful, more transparent and more disciplined, so that PSLV can truly return to being what it once was. Not a warning sign, but a workhorse once again.